friends, according to my habit tracker, it has been 11 days since I worked on my story. Today will be the 12th day if I don't get around to it. But I am hoping that today I can crack it open just to see, what's going on in there. So if you watched my last video, you would know that I'm still dealing with all of the side effects of stopping an SSRI, which is still very much true. I have not really seen any real improvement. But on top of that, 2 of my family members now have pneumonia, and I have a very bad cough. So all in all, it's not going well around here, so it could be a terrible plan to try to get back into writing today, and maybe I will end up ditching this intro and refilming it in the future when I actually start writing, but we'll just see how the day goes. I do want to try, and it could be that when I open my document, I get all, in my head and scared and not feeling like I can produce any words, and then I won't write anything, but then I'll at least know that I tried. So when I last worked on draft 2 of this young adult fantasy that I call my magical mystery, I finished scene 27, but I had skipped scene 26 because I have to write it new from scratch. So I think I'm going to go back in to scene 26 and look at my notes for that scene and see if I can just start trying to piece together some kind of scene. I have notes, I know what needs to happen in the scene. I'm not sure how the scene should be structured, but it's not completely blank in my head or on the paper. There are some notes there. So my thought is if I just go in and read the notes and just see how I'm feeling about scene 26, then maybe I can get back into writing today. Because I have taken all of this long time off while I was dealing with coming off of the SSRI, which I'm still dealing with that. I don't know, I'm not talking about it as if it's in the past. It's still very much in the present, but I just want to try to get back to writing. But since it has been so long, I know that I'm now well behind my goal of finishing draft 2 by the end of May. But, things happen. I don't know. I'm still not being hard on myself. I'm not sure what that's about. I don't know. But we're just gonna see what happens when I open my draft 2 document today. Okay, it is the next day. I did end up working on scene 26 last night. It was like pulling teeth, so nothing I did felt good. I didn't finish the scene, but I at least worked on it. There had been several bullet points that I'd listed for myself of things I wanted to be in the scene, and I couldn't figure out how to fit them all into it, so one of the bullet points isn't even going to be in that scene, and I'm going to have to find a new place for it in the story, which isn't good, and it left me feeling like that scene's really still gonna be unfinished even after I technically finish it for draft 2, so I don't know. I had initially marked it as skipped for draft 2 because I did skip it even though I went back to it now. So I might just leave that red dot there because the scene feels unfinished. I don't know, I didn't feel good about any of it, but I at least worked on it yesterday, so that's something. Okay, it is 4 days later. I did end up finishing scene 26. I took that one bullet point that I couldn't fit into the scene and I just made note of it in my outline that it needs to go somewhere else. But I finished it, so that's fine. I connected it to scene 27 and I moved on. I didn't go back through and reread what I had written for scene 26 because that will just slow me down and get me all up in my head. That's my editing brain and I still very much need to be in my drafting brain. So, finished scene 26. Didn't really do a whole lot for the last 4 days. I mean, according to my habit tracker, I have been sort of doing okay, walking 2 miles and reading 40 pages and eating my 1-a-day produce, but I haven't really been working on my story. And yesterday I was starting to feel like I missed writing a little bit and I wanted to get back into it, but I didn't yesterday, and so now today I'm feeling again like I don't want to get back into it, so I might have missed my window there for an easier way to get back into the story. But, so, scene 27 I'd already done, so the next time I work on the story, which may or may not be today, I'm gonna have to be working on scene 28, which has to be written entirely from scratch. Scene 28 has always been intimidating to me, which is why I I didn't even attempt it in the first draft, because it's supposed to be an important moment in the story. It's supposed to be a turn, but also sort of a fight, and at the same time being an emotional stepping stone in the broader fight. I don't know, there's just supposed to be a lot going on in this scene and like a lot of weight in this scene, and I am intimidated to write that. So I don't actually know if I'm going to begin scene 28 today. I at least have like notes in my document of like what scene 28 is supposed to be. I like know what's supposed to be in it and how it's supposed to, you know, accomplish these things. I'm scared about doing the actual writing, and I don't know what to do. I think I'm just gonna have to write it as if I were writing a first draft, because it is the first draft of this scene, and then not let my editing brain turn on, not go back through and reread it, just move on once I write it, and then I can come back to it later after I finish draft 2. I don't know. Alright, it's the same day, just much later. I have been working on scene 28. I'm not done with it by any means. I have barely begun. But I've been working on it. What I've been doing is just kind of like expanding the notes or like the structure that I know the scene needs to be, in the hopes that I can just keep expanding and expanding and expanding and like fleshing out that structure until I eventually end up with the scene. And maybe I can get like around the feeling that I'm actually trying to write by just kind of like expanding the outline of the scene. So that's all I've been doing at the moment. So it's not really like writing yet, and it's not really a scene yet. I'm still just working on expanding my outline in the hopes that it eventually magically expands into a scene. I don't know if that will work, but that's what I'm doing. So it is 2 days later. I didn't talk to you yesterday. I ended up having a Fiverr order to work on, which is very good. I edit fiction for people on Fiverr. Every time I start talking, he leaves me. He and I must spend a lot of time in silence together or something, because every time I start talking, it disturbs him. So I didn't end up working on my story yesterday. I'm hopeful that I can finish / start perhaps scene 28. Oh no, I definitely started it. Yeah, I was working on kind of like expanding the little bullet point outline that I had left for myself in the scene. But I'm hoping that I can finish scene 28 between today and tomorrow, because my hope is that by April 1st, which is Wednesday, I will be able to like start the new month with like a whole fresh, you know, new goals in mind and like a plan and everything, and not have to be dragging these scenes into April that I have been supposed to be working on for like the last several weeks and have not successfully worked on. So my goal is to finish scene 28 between today and tomorrow, and then start April with like some new vigor. It's not, you know, any vigor that I actually feel, but that's still my goal. And part of me feels like I will be able to finish scene 28 between today and tomorrow for no real reason. I did not. I skipped the part of scene 28 that's going to be the hardest to write. I ended up adding about 600 words to the scene in general, like to the outline bullet points. So like I added about 600 words of scene, and then I have outline bullet points of like what the hard part of the scene to write is going to be, but I didn't end up actually working on the hard part. So that's what I'm going to have to work on today and tomorrow, and for some reason I feel like I'm going to be able to do that somehow, even though I haven't even tried yet to work on that hard part. But that's what we're going to do today. Also, I have been thinking about my timeline of the last time I was writing before starting the SSRI that like potentially destroyed my creativity, or potentially I'm just blaming it unnecessarily when I just destroyed my own creativity with my own struggles. But the last time I was writing before the SSRI, I had actually written at least a large portion of the first draft of this magical mystery. I started draft 2 3 years ago. But I had written the first draft over the course of, I'm not even sure when exactly I started it, but I started it while I was querying the 5th book that I had ever written, which came before this one. I obviously came before, but it came like directly before. This was the 6th book that I had started, even though I have now worked on 8 books. So I definitely wrote a majority of the first draft of the Magical Mystery before starting the SSRI, which has been disturbing me because so much of the first draft, even though it's all just the world and it's not like good writing or anything, every time I read those scenes, I just love them so much, and I'm like, oh dang, I love this. And then when I try to like work on what I'm currently working on, like, you know, adding in scenes for draft 2 and adding in connective tissue, the voice, the vitality of the writing is not anywhere near that level that it was in the first draft. And I have not really been understanding why that was, and I thought maybe I was just being too hard on myself, and like the reason I'm not liking anything that I'm writing for draft 2 is just because I'm hard on myself in general, and like maybe rose-colored glasses will come into play in the future and I'll look back on this and be like, oh yeah, I love this. But I got worried when I realized that so much of the first draft I had written before starting the SSRI, because that could mean that the starting of the medication and the downhill feelings I have about my writing and creativity in general, maybe everything I've done in the second draft, in all versions of the second draft, haven't been as good because they've been impacted by the medication. Maybe they haven't been impacted by the medication, and maybe I've just struggled so much with writing just because I struggle in general with things, and I had so much rejection, and that had really gotten me down. So like maybe I am unfairly blaming the medication. I don't know. But I wrote most of the first draft with no anxiety medication. I love so many of those scenes. For the past so many years, I have been struggling with my creativity. I don't know which caused what, but I'm just worried that I'm never gonna get the feel and the life of the first draft into the story now in the second draft, because nothing I write feels as good. I mean, just literally nothing I write feels as good. For the past years, all of the years I've been on YouTube, all the years I was working on draft 2 for this story, and the book I wrote all in one vlog, and the adult contemporary that I fought for so long before giving up on at 35,000 words of the first draft, none of that writing has ever been as enjoyable to me, or like I've been able to look back on it and think, wow, I really like this, as the writing that came before the SSRI. I mean, I feel like that has to mean something, and I'm concerned about what it means, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take me, if I ever can get back to a time when I feel those like creative bursts that I was clearly experiencing, at least somewhat, during the first draft of this novel before starting the medication. I don't know. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I might have been rambling, but I'm just worried. I'm worried that the voice and the life that I love so much in the first draft of this story, I'm never going to be able to access again, because I've spent so much time on this SSRI, and like maybe I've just lost all of my creativity in general. I don't know. Maybe it was just contributed by the SSRI. Maybe it wasn't at all, and it was all caused by me just feeling so bad about myself after so much rejection. But either way, I'm worried that the voice and vitality from the first draft is never going to get back into the story, and I'm never going to be able to put it back into the story, because nothing I write now is as good. And like I haven't been letting myself go back and reread the scenes that I've been adding to draft 2, because I know it's just going to get me down. So like maybe in the future I will get those rose-colored glasses and I'll be able to look back at the scenes that I added, and like I won't even know which scenes I added and which ones came from the first draft. Even though I feel like there's no way that's true, because I'm struggling to access that vitality. I like haven't been able to access that vitality that got me through the first draft and all of the books I'd written before starting this SSRI. And truly, I know I keep saying this, but it's possible I'm unfairly blaming the SSRI. I never talked to my psychiatrist about whether or not it could be destroying my creativity, because I'm afraid to. I'm afraid to speak to that man. So this isn't medical information. This is just my thoughts. And I'm just worried that I'm never going to write anything that feels as good to me as what I wrote before starting the SSRI. Next day. Last night I was able to add 300 words to scene 28. I started working on the meaty, hard part of the scene, and it was like going okay in that I was getting words written, but I could tell that there is no magic, there's no voice in this writing. I'm literally just writing, she did this, and then she did that, and this is what happened, and this is what came next. I'm like telling a very bland version of this story. I'm not like imbuing it with any kind of voice or like magic or anything, and I'm sad about that, and I'm worried that all of the voice and magic that I find when I read the scenes that I brought over from before, 3 years ago or whenever I started draft 2, all of the magic and the voice in those scenes came from before I started the medication. And I'm just so worried that I'm never going to be able to write voicey like that again. And it's unfortunate. Last night I was getting really down about the absolute lack of voice in this story so far, in these new scenes that I'm adding. And like I was trying to comfort myself by saying I could add voice later, like in revision, but I'm not sure if that's actually gonna be something I'm capable of doing. I don't know. I started, the quote, reading is breathing in and writing is breathing out. I started thinking perhaps I'm just not breathing in enough. I know I've been trying to read 40 pages each day, but so far this month I've only actually done that 8 days. So maybe I'm just not reading enough, and maybe by reading more I will be able to access my words more, because right now I cannot access them in any way at all. And like I actually started wondering last night if maybe I should stop writing because it's going so poorly. I don't know if that's the solution, but I was quite down last night, and I'm feeling down again today. So I don't know, I'm still gonna try to finish scene 28 by the end of today, because tomorrow is when April starts. But I'm not sure if that's even the right thing to be doing. Like, should I continue pressing on, trying to finish draft 2, if it's gonna be so flat and voiceless and without magic? I don't know. But I mean, my quality of writing right now is literally like the lowest quality of writing that you can imagine. Like, if a high schooler who has no interest in writing creatively, forced to write a creative story for their English class, like worse than that quality is the quality of the writing. Like the prose that I'm putting in the story. There is no voice, no immersion, and I straight up don't remember how to write voice and immersive prose. And that is just a significant problem that I don't have a solution for. And it makes me not only sad and hopeless, but also just very concerned for the future of my writing. Because, like, what if that never comes back? Okay, so it is the next day, it's April 1st. Last night I was able to finish scene 28. I didn't start the connective tissue between scenes 28 and 29, so that still doesn't exist, but I at least finished scene 28. And I must say, it was like pulling teeth. I can't believe how hard it was to write that scene, because I had such detailed bullet points about what needed to be in the scene. I basically just needed to turn the bullet points into scene, and yet it still was just so hard to do, and I wanted to give up much of the time, and even after I finished the scene, I felt like the scene was really bad still. But scene 28 ended up being, in total, 2,394 words long, which is fine. It did mean that so far in draft 2, we have reached 62,000 words, which is good, because when I started this iteration of draft 2 a couple of months ago, it was sitting at 52,000 words, so now we've added about 10,000 words to draft 2, just during these last couple of months when I've been working on it, not counting whatever I did before my massive, many years of break. But a couple thousand of those words were from a scene I had pulled from draft 1 and put back into draft 2. It was like that fantasy trope scene, so that was a couple thousand words, but then the rest of the 10,000 words that we've added to draft 2 have come from me just working on scenes and connective tissue. So that does feel good, it should feel good, but it's still just, everything I write just feels so bad and flat and like just not even worth being words, that it's hard to feel good about anything. But at least scene 28 is done, so we can start April now with a sort of a fresh slate, I guess, and begin working on new scenes without having to drag these scenes that I've been supposed to be working on for the past several weeks into April. So that's something, I suppose. Please like and subscribe. Also, I do offer fiction editing on Fiverr, anything from short stories or single chapters to whole novels. If anybody has a story out there that they'd like for me to look at, please check out the link in the description box below. Thank you!